we're here to discuss something that I have playing in the background right now.
I wanted to. I was kind of scrambling, so I did not.
Yeah. I hit play while I came down and got things organized, and right now they're about to bring, oh God, what's her name? Rowan back to life. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's okay. All he wanted was his machete back.
Stupid.
I love it. It's like it's gonna take more than a shot to the ribs to kill this old dog. Oh, that'll do.
Oh,
Or that'll about do. Or...
I have so much to say about this movie because it.
Well, hang on. Hold on. Let's go into a little bit of history on it. So, it wrapped filming in 2000, and then it sat on the shelves for 2 years because they didn't have any faith in it. Was going through.
It did air in one country, and I don't remember what
Spain.
country it was. Spain.
Yes, in 2001.
Yes, in 2001. Then it sat on a shelf everywhere else and for a year. For a whole year. Oh, yeah, man, that's rough.
Right, yeah. It mostly released April 26th in 2002. They were going through a reorg. They didn't have any faith in Jason X, and they were kind of treading water to get to Freddy vs. Jason.
And they had already paid for like 24 scripts by that point for Freddy vs. Jason. They couldn't come to an agreement on who wins, what script looks better, what idea. Sean Cunningham was pushing and pushing and pushing to get Freddy vs. Jason made, and it just never, it wasn't coming to fruition for one reason or another. And it's funny because there's a whole book on that, and I'm still not done reading it. Slash of the Titans. It actually breaks down a lot of the scripts. They only printed so many copies. It's one of those that if you go and buy it online, they print it for you and then mail it to you. Oh. So I think it was $25 when I bought it, but it's been worth every penny. Cannot lie.
Yeah, $25. Yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, speaking of bad though, the movie currently sits at 4.4 on IMDb. It has a 19 on Rotten Tomatoes.
19% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yes.
Yeah.
I looked it up just to see. But then again, I was looking. I keep looking at random rankings of films and their ratings, and sometimes they just get it wrong. Like that. Right. That just is it. We'll get to that on this movie.
Well, and I've always said that if you make fun of Jason X, you're kind of missing the mark. Like it knows what it is, even though the directions they were taking were a little bit serious, a little bit comedic. Like there were like 4 different people with 4 different ideas, including Sean S. Cunningham, multiple script recaps and rewrites, and so the movie kind of has a crisis of identity, but it, for the most part, knows what it's doing.
Yeah, and apparently when they went, when James Isaac, the director, would go in to shoot a day, he would get a stack of rewrites from Sean Cunningham that morning.
Jeez.
And so it completely changed. And then Todd Farmer would be in charge of like making the comedy. But James Isaacs wanted it to be darker, more like the original Alien. And it got caught up with too many hands in the pot. And Sean S. Cunningham passed it to, well, I can't remember his son's name.
Oh my God, of course you'd say that and then I blank. His son was the producer on it, yeah.
Yeah, but then he dove in and just redid everything everybody else did because he didn't like it. Which, there are many, 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 many documented cases of how difficult Sean S. Cunningham can be. And I still to this day think that my favorite is in an interview with Adam Marcus. They were like, what was your driving factor to make Jason not as big in the film? And he said, well, Sean Cunningham always says it was my idea. I was like a 23-year-old kid. and I was told to pull Jason out of the movie as much as possible. So do with that information what you will.
Right.
And I totally believe it, because who's got the power there? Sean Cunningham or some 23-year-old kid who's never directed anything in his life?
Right. Right. So some interesting tidbits on the movie. This is the first full-length, digitally shot movie, which is really interesting.
Yep.
Part of that goes into its budget. It has at the time, it had the highest budget of the Friday the 13th franchise at $14 million.
14 million, yeah.
Yeah, at $14 million, the highest budget of the entire franchise, but it had the budget of the last 4 movies, which is insane.
Combined. And Manhattan was supposed to have a ginormous budget, and that got ripped out from underneath it.
Correct. And then, the movie is now dethroned from Freddy vs. Jason, which had a $25 million budget, and the 2009, which had a $17 million budget. But the 2009 at a $17 million brought in $96.4 million, and the Freddy vs. Jason at a $25 million budget brought in $114.5 million, whereas Jason X brought in $17 million, so it's the third highest budget Friday the 13th, and it is the third lowest grossing in the franchise. Goes to Hell had $16 million, and what you just said, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, had $14 million budget. So it's just interesting how it's got the third highest budget and it's the third lowest grossing. So dollar to dollar, pound for pound, it is the worst netted Friday the 13th movie. But there's a caveat with the 2000 wrapping of the film and not airing until 2001/2002 when it fully released. It was one of the most highly pirated movies of all time, where people were passing around it. The movie leaked and they were passing it around, so it kind of kicked itself. It's just interesting that, it's pretty crazy. And unfortunately, because of all this, it would be the last time that Kane Hodder would don the mask for the movies. And Sean S. Cunningham also got kicked out of Freddy vs. Jason quite a bit because of the results.
And how he is. So the pirate thing, that reminds me, I saw the first quarter of this movie pirated before its theatrical release in the US. And I remember, I was a kid. 2002, April, I was 11 years old. I was stoked, absolutely stoked. And it's also the first time I went to theaters to see a Jason movie, which that's a big deal. And it's the first Jason DVD that I purchased. It's like I have a history with this movie. So it, as much negative as there is to say about the movie, I hold it in a very high regard. All three of you who may watch this later, I'm sure may or may not have seen my quote-unquote cosplays. I did a Part 8 Jason, Jason X, pre-Uber Jason, and then Freddy versus Jason. And honestly, of the three, the Jason X Jason was the most fun to build, and it's the one that I want to redo the most. I absolutely love it. Which makes me say, I know how many people hate this look, the snub nose and the shackles and the leather on top of just a plain gray work shirt and work pants. I think it's good. I think it looks cool. It looks like something out of 2000. Like it fits. They changed the hockey mask enough to be completely different. The only thing that ever drove me nuts is the fact that Jason had almost a full head of hair for the first time since Part 2.
But they say in the movie that he can regenerate. That's why they're testing it, right? So
yeah.
So it kind of plays. It works just enough. Like, yeah, you can make an argument if it bothers you, but yeah, for the most part, it works. yeah, the movie for, I mean, like I said, even as a kid, as a kid I was pretty confused, like, because this was around the same time I was able to rent movies easier without having to use somebody, so like I could go get horror movies faster. And
Yeah.
so I saw it on the shelf, and it reminded me of uh, Halloween 4 and 5. It's just the sudden dip in quality, and it's like, well, like I understand you're probably doing your best here, but it felt like a sci-fi action horror of the week. Even as a kid, I was like, I don't know if this was the smartest move for the franchise. I mean, especially this was the second movie in the Paramount ownership.
New Line.
New Line, yeah, sorry, yeah, New Line. Very weird, very weird. Yeah, the Paramount
Well,
was
and
first half, my fault.
the only reason that they did it, only reason at all, was to make sure all the rights could be kept, and Freddy versus Jason had just kept not happening.
Yeah.
Jason Goes to Hell was supposed to be the final Friday movie of the original lineup, and then Freddy versus Jason was supposed to take up and be its own thing. That it just didn't happen. There were talks of bringing Hellraiser in, talks of bringing Ash Williams in, talks of bringing like real life serial killers like John Wayne Gacy and Richard Ramirez and Charles Manson, bringing them in. Um, it it kept not happening. So the studio did what they did best, and they were like, we need another Jason movie to keep everything going. And I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe it was Todd Farmer who said, let's put him in space, and then everybody was like, yeah, sure, let's do that. And
there was a bunch of ideas floating around. There was like a NASCAR one. There was a in the snow. There was
that.
Yeah.
Why not a winter?
Yeah. And then there was a submarine idea.
Thank God
they were ready to get out of Camp Crystal Lake.
And that's one of the things. Sean Cunningham wanted Jason out of the hockey mask. He wanted Jason out of Crystal Lake. He has this property that is Jason and Friday the 13th, but he wants nothing to do with it. So he kept trying to change it, or at least has been accused of trying to change it, which is what's responsible for Jason X and Jason Goes to Hell. You have a legendary character that's going to live throughout pop culture until the end of time, forever, and you keep wanting to find a way to get rid of him with that title. It just does not make sense to me at all.
Right. Well, I'm really surprised. I'm surprised that, I mean, I guess it makes sense. It's kind of like Hellraiser Bloodline. You put it so far in the future that it doesn't really matter what happens. You can still make movies before that. But at the same time, it kind of, for me, ruins the ending. It's like who won in Freddy vs. Jason? Well, Jason won because he's in Jason X. Like,
two things on that. One, Hellraiser Bloodline was severely cut and butchered.
Right.
I believe it was supposed to be 2 films originally, and they got forced to push it and crunch it down to 1. Which I need to give that film another fair chance, because the last time I watched it, I wasn't fully paying attention, and I remember not liking it before. I do like a lot of the detective Hellraiser films. We'll cover Hellraiser one day, I'm sure, but that's neither here nor there. As far as space movies go, I think Hellraiser is a far more sophisticated film. This is definitely taking Jason and putting him in space. Like that, with the campiest Canadian cast that they could find.
Right.
To the point that the actress, I wrote down her name, sorry. Lexa, who plays Rowan, and this is going to kill me, the actress who plays KM, later reprised roles in like sci-fi TV shows where like
Farscape, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Lexa plays an android and KM plays a human.
Right.
Like it's just interesting. I don't know.
It's interesting too that you brought up how they cut up Bloodline. this actually is, because of its cheese factor and because it's in space, this is actually the least cut up of the Friday the 13th franchise. It's really interesting.
Yeah. The MPAA just kind of let it slide.
Yeah.
I think it's with the campiness, with the digital effects. And on it, okay, I want to put aside the digital effects. Some of them look great. Some of them look god-awful. That is just true. But the practical effects that they use in this film look good. So when they lift the hockey mask off of Jason's face when he's still frozen Jason looks good. The head smash is amazing.
Yeah.
Uber Jason looks cool. Like, I mean, he looks a little Lord Zed, but he looks cool. And I just was today years old when I learned that the gentleman who designed RoboCop designed Uber Jason.
Yep.
That's
There's
awesome.
actually a lot of talent. Yeah, there was a lot of talent in this movie. I mean, of course,
David Cronenberg. Yeah, David Cronenberg signed to this movie under the contract that he would get killed by Jason.
Right. In the opening little tidbit of the movie. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this movie has a lot of horror history and love to it. 20 years, and people still absolutely hate or absolutely love this movie. Very few Friday fans go, nah, it's in the middle. Like, I feel like most people are like running to its defense or running to trash it. Nobody just kind of like, nah, meh.
I'm one of those in the middle. Like, because there's, like, once again, you need to be in on the joke. It's not necessarily a joke. Like, it's taken pretty much seriously. It's got some 90s cheese to it, but,
yeah,
you know, it's in space. What do you want? Like, it can't do anything to the franchise to really hurt it. You know what I mean?
The song in the trailer... The song in the trailer is Bodies by Drowning Pool. How 2000 can you be? Like,
right.
It's nuts. Speaking of which, it's sad that Dave Williams passed because Drowning Pool just went downhill ever since he passed. Speaking of practical effects, it's playing in the background again, and Jason just broke up the CGI, or the game, with their version of Jay from Jay and Silent Bob and Todd Farmer's character.
Yep.
I think it's interesting that Kane claims that he hid from a lot of the actors in all of the films that he's done as Jason or as Victor Crowley. But in this one, he claims that every character except for the girl with the frozen head smash was absolutely petrified of him because of the Uber Jason outfit. So once people saw what was coming, they didn't want to be around him. But she was really comfortable and completely okay doing the stunts, and she apparently told everybody she felt safe with Kane Hodder as Jason, and I think
he wasn't Uber Jason yet when she died.
No, he wasn't yet, so maybe that's why she didn't get to see that. But apparently that Uber Jason outfit terrified people on set. Not as bad as what he claims the Friday Part 7 did, where he went through other sets and would scare the crap out of other people as Jason, which I would.
On the set, I can't remember, didn't somebody notice that he was walking around and call the police, and then like this, wasn't there a sheriff that rolled up behind him, and then like he turned and didn't say anything, and the sheriff just left and never said a word about it?
Yeah, I want to say that.
Something about a sheriff being so freaked out he never talked about it.
I think that was Friday 7. Friday 8, a kid tried to steal his hockey mask, and he wound up walking away with their bike. And that was in New York, their little short strip shot. They apparently, the way he explains how they had it blocked off, I mean, say what you will about Manhattan, imagine being Kane, and you show up in New York, and you're blocking off the strip to shoot you as Jason walking through it. Yeah. How cool is that? And again, say what you will about the movie, but that's one of the most iconic shots. It's one of the most used, like, Jason wallpapers, and Jason, like, when people break down images, it's Jason in New York is almost always there. that's cool. That's gonna live for forever.
Yeah, it's too bad that movie just the budget got cut and everything else got cut. It's too bad that movie didn't see its full potential. But
Yeah.
Jason X is just a very weird place to leave the last chronological entry in the franchise. It's or time spot, whatever you want to say it. But it's a weird. Yeah. Did he live at the end? Did he die? Like, I mean, I know in the comics they continue on, but
yeah, they continue, and Kane Hodder's Jason goes up against Ken Kritzinger's Freddy versus Jason because that's the Earth that they landed on. So they make it a little bit kind of interesting, and for a fan film, that could be a fun little like 30-minute quick fan film with a low budget that I'd watch. And I just feel like you're being rude, cruel, and judgmental.
Jabari's angry.
I love Jason X. I absolutely love it. In fact, besides Jason, who's your favorite character?
Probably the robot. That end fight scene is just is pretty awesome. Like when he gets wrecked. I don't know. I like the stoner dude that loses his arm. He's funny. I mean, yeah. I'd probably say I don't know. There's just something about the android. It's like I'll be back on my feet in no time as soon as I get some feet. Or legs, whatever she says. But I don't know.
I have to go Sergeant Brodsky.
Yeah,
he is awesome, dude. Yeah. He is like. Besides Jason, the best thing about this movie, just his lines, this dude should have done more action and sci-fi. Or if he did, I don't know about it, and I need to go through and find his.
Well, he's in the original. Wow, brain fart. Resident Evil. He's the head. And he is in Spartacus, the Starz show, which I just finished again for like the 5th time. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. He plays Animaeus, and he is a force to be reckoned with in that he is a boss and a half in Spartacus.
Wait, it's not him who's in Resident Evil. It's the guy from Arrow who plays Oliver Queen's mom's new boyfriend.
Oh, in like the first 2 seasons?
Yes.
Yeah, that does look right in my brain. Are you sure it's not the same guy? They both have that like deep voice.
Yep.
And it's not the same guy. And they have the cheekbones for days.
Nope, not the same guy. I cannot think of their names.
Really?
Not the same guy.
Wow.
Really.
Okay. All right, my bad. But now I'm a little nervous, but I want to say I'm 100% that that's the same guy in Spartacus. I will check on that later, but
we'll
remember a lot, but I wasn't feeling it. I saw it twice years ago. Yeah, Jabari, you got to be in the mood for it. You got to be in that cheap sci-fi, it's almost like it kind of feels like in the same vein as Starship Troopers, like that quality. Like where they had some money behind it, but it's a little cheesy.
It feels like an early Sci-Fi Channel movie in all the right ways and all the wrong ways. Like, I can't explain. Like, for some reason, it's perfect for that. Like, if you've ever sat down and watched like 3 or 4 Sci-Fi Channel movies, you'll understand what I'm talking about. There's this production quality that is trash, dialogue that is bad, but then there's something charming about a specific shot or a specific kill or a specific character, and this movie has a lot of that. The dialogue in this movie is garbage, but Jason's kills are amazing, like some of the best in the franchise. I mean that. You get the evil gets an upgrade, which I remember that tagline like being so cool. And I remember we've talked about this in our Freddy versus Jason when like Yahoo made their Messenger and AIM made their messenger for Freddy versus Jason. You could pick the Freddy background or the Jason one. You could get the flames with the glove holding the mask. There was a Jason X one where you could get the opening credits, all the flames with the X that's actually supposed to be like brain tissue. Or you could get the silhouette of Jason's shadow holding the hockey mask, which years later was released that was on a behind the scenes thing where Kane was actually between takes and he was holding the hockey mask and the cameraman just took a shot for just long enough. Yeah. Like, oh man, there was so much behind this movie, and I know everybody dogs the look of Jason, but I can't stress it enough. I really like this look of Jason. It's unique. It's unique.
Yeah,
Uber Jason is also goofy, but cool.
Right. Besides the obvious of it feeling like a sci-fi movie, I mean, the sci-fi movies went nuts in like the late '90s, mid 2000s. They were just throwing everything out there. On top of that, it has that lighting that a lot of TV shows have, like not necessarily like Friends, but stuff like that, where everything's just lit very well. And even when like you can tell there's no light source in here, everything's just lit really well. The cheese dialogue and some of that like the throwaway music and special effects.
This is also, I'm watching this on DVD in the background, and it got me thinking. Also with the cinematography on this is the first Friday the 13th Jason whatever film that doesn't have a lot of like that horror movie grain to it, like every other Friday film has. This is really polished, clean lines, darks, lights, very like perfect imagery. Almost like the first time you set your eyes on an LED TV and you haven't adjusted the settings yet, you're like, why does this look like real life? Like it, right. I don't like it. It's kind of like that. And I can see how that takes somebody out of it. But God, I love it. I don't know why. I love it.
Yeah, all of it was shot in stages and green screens, except for one shot. So that's also why it feels like that. And it being shot digitally, that's also why it doesn't have as much grain. Probably because they were trying to make it look like a high-end, but budget movie, but actually kind of it went with the cheese.
Went the other way.
Yeah.
And even at the time, when I saw the bootleg, the first quarter of the movie, I thought it looked way better. And there was a bootleg from like Kazaa or Napster or something, I don't know. And then you get to the theater and you're sitting there watching it, and I remember thinking like, this movie is really sharp. It's really sharp, which is weird. I'm not sure I like it. Because at the time, that was reserved for things like comedy, romance. That wasn't an action or horror or even a sci-fi thing necessarily, other than the Sci-Fi Channel. Like, good Lord, the Sci-Fi Channel ran wild with shooting like this.
Right. Well, and I think that the next two movies, Freddy vs. Jason and '09, Friday the 13th, they're clean also, but they have a lot of color grading, especially in Freddy vs. Jason for dreams and for different areas that they're shooting in. There's a lot of movement throughout Freddy vs. Jason, different set pieces, which kind of helps break that up a little bit. But in the 2009 by Platinum Dunes, they kind of use that same almost dream-esque feel to it sometimes, kind of like the 2003 Texas Chainsaw. I do agree that 2009. I don't know. Freddy vs. Jason, I get it because it's a product of its time. But I think in '09 they probably should have known a little bit better and done a little bit more grain. But I still think it's a good presentation of the movie. I think it's I mean, you can feel it having a good budget, and especially I mean, for almost having the same budget as Freddy vs. Jason, they used it really well, and I'm surprised they got that much. And especially when I mean, if the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre didn't come out, you wouldn't have gotten the 2009 reboot,
Yeah.
you would have gotten a Freddy vs. Jason sequel. But anyway, yeah, it's the nice thing about New Line is they never did the same thing twice. Each movie goes to hell, X, Freddy vs. Jason, and 09. Each movie is completely different. Like, when you look at the Paramount, like, they kind of bleed together and they flow pretty well, most of them. And then you just get this yoink, yoink, yoink. It's just...
Yeah. New Line got it and was like, I don't know what we're going to do with it. Like, you know, Friday 1 was its own standalone thing. Friday 2 was copy and paste, different killer. Friday 3 was like, how can we build on this, but we want to make the character look different. Friday 4, direct continuation. Friday 5, let's change a few things and try and make something a little bit different. Friday 6, different didn't work, let's bring Jason back. Friday 7, we couldn't do Freddy versus Jason, we couldn't do Freddy versus Carrie, so let's do... Or couldn't do Jason versus Carrie, so let's do Jason versus not Carrie.
Kmart Carrie, yeah. I can't remember. I think somebody called her that, but they said Walmart. But Kmart Carrie is what I've heard.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like we haven't talked a lot. I mean, we talk a lot about Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street in passing, because I feel like we have both been kind of saving these films for some reason or another.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we should start talking about them a little more, because Jason X, like, I can't believe it's been 20 years. Like, I was sitting here thinking about it. My cousin who recently passed, he and I wore out Jason X. Like, I mean, nonstop. And we had his little brother absolutely believing that if you died in a movie, you died in real life. So he thought, he was like, why would you do that? Why would you agree to go die? And we're like, you know, you live forever in the movie. Like, we were mean. But I have so many memories with this movie. And everybody always gave me crap for liking it because it was so bad. I remember, because, you know, a lot of people didn't talk about horror. Like, it was... My dad liked scary movies because they were scary. He didn't necessarily follow them. My brother he liked how Jason looked. He liked the first Nightmare on Elm Street. He liked the first Halloween. But he wasn't a huge, like, follower. I, like, dug in and went crazy. And everybody who liked Friday the 13th was how wrong I was for liking Jason X. Or how wrong I was for liking Jason Takes Manhattan. Or with Nightmare on Elm Street, how wrong I was for liking Nightmare on Elm Street 4 or 5. You know, it's weird. And the Halloween fandom's the same way. If you like Halloween 6, Halloween 4, or whatever, more than a certain movie, you're just wrong. And so it's kind of interesting to talk about it from a perspective that it's like, oh, I know it's a bad movie, but I absolutely, thoroughly enjoy Jason X. And I will always have Jason X in my collection. Like, today, when I was thinking about it, I was like, I need a digital copy, and I need a Blu-ray. And because it's one of those movies that I would have multiple copies of because of my association with the film itself.
I got lucky and I got the full franchise digital download in one of those the tins I bought. I got it for $35, and it came with the digital downloads. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "There's no way this thing's gonna work." It came out like 2014, but by God, they work.
It even had Jason X and Freddy vs. Jason, and because all the ones I've seen, the ones I've seen only have up to Part 8 with digital, and then everything New Line is not.
No, but the metal tin from 2014 that came out with all of them, that one had a digital download that had all of them.
The one with Jason Goes to Hell, Jason on the front.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I passed on that for $50, and I'm kicking myself for doing it because I saw it at Vintage Stock the other day for like $214, and I just
What? $214? I've got 2 of
them. Then again, vintage stock, you know.
Right.
Well,
right.
if the other digital codes don't work, I may purchase them from you one day.
Well, the other one, because I bought 2 of them, I tried one, it didn't work. I tried the other. Had the other one still been available, I would. I know. I couldn't believe any of them worked. I was like, this is stupid. I'm wasting my time. But my God, it did work. Yeah, it's, we've talked about this before, but really the realization I've always come with Friday the 13th is that Halloween started off a masterpiece. Nightmare on Elm Street, for the most part, started off as a masterpiece. And then you can make the argument that they all went downhill. Friday the 13th has got hills and valleys. And it's always been kind of a B tier to Halloween. I'm not trying to say Halloween's better. I'm just saying that it followed in the footsteps. It tried to hit the same beats and do its own thing a little bit. And then it took it a while to find its footing and run with it. So it's a franchise that you should have. You should go in and turn your brain off being a critic and just enjoy the kills, enjoy Jason, enjoy what's happening, because it's not about the villain, or it's not about the heroes, because there's not a whole lot of returning. It's not about it's about the suspense and the atmosphere, really. I mean, it's all good things about the 80s slashers.
A lot of these horror franchises seem to be like, so Halloween is big on legacy characters. Granted, it kind of screwed itself at 4 and had to create a new legacy. That I'm sure we've talked many times about that. Nightmare on Elm Street started legacy, died, went back to legacy, died. And I feel like once Nightmare on Elm Street comes back again, it will focus on the legacy because it's been so successful for Halloween. Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw Massacre weren't really legacy films. Child's Play, legacy film. Scream, legacy film. Like, it started picking up and people started noticing. So Friday the 13th is a good franchise that if you just want to see some crazy cool looking thing go through and kill a bunch of people in cheesy and cool and weird ways with some honestly really cool music from Harry Manfredini, it is a great franchise. Like,
right. Well, it's also like in a way, it's almost the most relatable too. Is like, you're a kid, you have no worries in the world. You're going on a vacation out in the woods with your buddies. It's a little out there, right? It's a little extravagant in certain things and what they do and drinking and all the other stuff. But really, it's about tapping into the innocence and the unaware. And it's just easier to just turn off your brain and just enjoy, because it's easy to go along with. And it's also, it doesn't quite have a shtick like Halloween, where Halloween has got to be, for the most part, on Halloween. They've never done, like, Michael in August. They've never done Michael in July. You know what I mean? Like, Friday the 13th, even though it's Friday the 13th, it doesn't really matter where. It doesn't really matter when. It's just Jason, usually the woods. You know what I mean? They do whatever they want, really. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But go back to Nightmare on Elm Street real fast, man. I just want to say that I know this is Jason X, but can you imagine? Now, I love A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. I understand that it sucks from a certain point of view and that it ruins certain things. I completely understand that and might even agree with you to an extent. But can you imagine doing a sequel to Part 2? Not saying that the rest don't happen, so you don't have to you don't have to requel it or whatever. But if you capitalized on all the messages and the messages and hidden messages of Part 2, and actually, did another deep dive into all that stuff in the sequel. Like, you start off with like how they in movies they have like suppressed memories, and then something happens. You could bring back Freddy by Jesse has suppressed the memories of Freddy. And then all of a sudden something traumatic happens to where he remembers Freddy and he brings back Freddy to reality. From whichever movie you want to jump off of, dude, I won't even hear a better, I don't want to reboot, you can't convince me of a better way than to do that. I think that would tingles.
Be cool. I think that would be really cool. I think that the problem people have with 2 the most these days is one, established Freddy's powers,
And rules,
two,
yeah.
changes them completely, and then three just is like, you know what? We're gonna do whatever we want. And then from there they just got wild. So I feel like with the first sequel changing all the rules to Freddy kind of gives people a bad taste, but over the years, okay, when I first got this box set, I thought Nightmare 2 was the scariest one of the bunch. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved it. I've never disliked it. And still to this day, I think it is the scariest of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, hands down, from beginning to finish. I think Freddy is the most terrifying in it. I think that the story where you're not sure if it's you, you're not sure if it's Dream, you're not sure if that is absolutely terrifying. They did a great job with it. And I think that you're right. It would be the best way to do it. But unfortunately, whenever whatever does happen happens, I think we're going to get another cheap attempt at a sequel where they're going to realize it was Wes Craven's work. So they're going to try and do some commentary on sequels, prequels, requels like they do with Scream. And I just think it's going to miss really hard.
Yeah. I wish, like, I know that 2 has got more love now today than it ever has. I just wish that it was strong enough to carry the franchise forward with Jesse and that idea of what he was going through, the realization of who he became and who he was. And then, like, the past trauma, something happens, it brings back Freddy. It's more of it's not about sleep. It's the mental suppression of who you are and the things that are happening to you. Like, that's why it works for me. Not only do I think that there's a strong case that the whole movie could be a dream, which I think is a horrible cop-out for most movies, but in a Nightmare realm, it makes sense.
Street, it works. Dude, maybe next week, I'm sorry to interrupt, but maybe next week we should commentary Freddy's Revenge.
Dude, that'd be awesome.
I think it'd be fun. I haven't watched it in a couple years. I really enjoy it. I think it could be fun. We'll talk more, but sorry to interrupt. I love that movie.
No, I love that movie too. But yeah, no, Jason X, guys, if you haven't watched it, you need to go back and watch it. Like I said, go into it in a fun mood, not in a critical, not in as a critic, just watch the movie and enjoy for the cheese that it is. Especially it's a really good early 2000s time capsule of the style, the music, the cinematography, the sci-fi-ness. Like, dude, it's a nice. The older I get, the more I appreciate little pockets of, like we were talking about, of Face Off. Like, that's a movie that worked really well in mid-90s. Like, there's certain movies that they're perfect for when they came out. I'm not saying it's a masterpiece. I'm not saying it should be a lowest on anybody's list, and I'm not saying it should be highest on anybody's list, but it's fun. It's especially when you've had 9 movies prior to that. You got to do something different. I mean, it's a choose your own adventure. Like, people always say that for Halloween, but really Friday the 13th is the most choose your own adventure, especially after 4.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally go, how do I want Jason to look? Where do I want him to be? Do I want it to be Jason? Do I want Freddy involved? Like, that's a lot. Like, you can pick. There is a lot to pick from. I have to ask, I wrote down my top 3 kills from this movie because this movie's kills are really cool. I don't know if you came prepared with 3 kills, but I have to ask, if you could, top 3 kills.
I mean, obviously the top one's going to be the cryogenic freeze face one. I mean, it's probably a contender for top 3 in the entire franchise. So there's that one. I would say I love the screw when he's going down the screw, and then later they're like, "How's he doing?" She's like, "He's screwed." Like, yeah. And then I would probably say the third one, I'm gonna kind of cheat a little bit, but it's a spoiler alert for the end of the movie. But when I forgot his name again. What's his name? The sergeant? Brodsky. When he's riding Jason down like Jason Momoa from Justice League when he's riding the demon down, when he's riding Jason into the atmosphere of Earth. I just think that's so awesome. That Jason's coming back at the space station, and you got him. He just intercepts him and just rides him into Earth, thinking he's going to kill him. I think it's an awesome death. I don't know if it's not really a kill, but that's what I would say.
I like all three of your choices. And see, there's a lot to pick from in this movie. So number one for me is obviously the Frozen head smash. It's probably a contender for number one in the whole franchise. When Jason just wakes up and just shoots up and he's like thawing out and he just realizes he's in the room with somebody else. And then they shoot to her looking and he's not on the table anymore. And dude, that whole scene is played out great. And then the smash is just, the way he just like, ugh, and it's just awesome. Yeah. My second would have to be Dr. It's Cronenberg's death. His impalement in the beginning scene. Because Jason's taking people out with the chains and their weapons. And he's got this like stake on the end of one of his chains, and the doctor's running, and he just throws it, and he's almost out the door, and it just straight up impales him. It's awesome. It's a weak death, but at the same time, it's super cool. And my final has to be, this sucks on so many levels. Janessa going through the vacuum grate is... I love that so much. It's so bad. It's terrible writing, but I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's pretty bad. But no, the kills in that are great. Like we were saying earlier with the MPAA not killing them with the kills. Once again, that makes the movie more enjoyable. I mean, if you look at Part 7, the reason why that movie just feels so weak sauce is because they just ripped all the kills right out of it. I really wish they could find that footage and insert that back, but
they found some of it. They found some of it, but the footage is so in such bad shape that it's been released online. You can find it. It's mostly without sound, and the footage is in such bad shape that it's just not repairable. I know not all of it has been found, but a little bit. And it really sucks because having arguably the coolest looking Jason in the least gory of the franchise is really sad. Right. Really, really sad.
Especially when he's not, I wouldn't say he's the meanest Jason, but he's up there. He's definitely a contender.
Oh, yeah. I would put that Jason against every single Jason other than Uber. Like, my money's on him. Like, no contest. Oh, yeah, no contest.
Yeah, and it must be said too for the franchise for Friday the 13th. It is nice that fans have given us fan/professional movie makers like DeSante and there's a few other guys. I forget their names from like Roseblood, from Vengeance. Like pretty high end, pretty fun. It's more than just getting your friends together and shooting in the backyard. So I appreciate the fans and filmmakers out there that are giving us some entertainment while we wait and hope that we get something. I mean, eventually, I know it's inevitable we'll get something, but man, it'd be scary if it missed the boat. I don't know. We'll see.
I do wish too that this lawsuit wouldn't have messed up the game, because the Grindel map and Uber Jason would have been super awesome. Although it would have really sucked playing multiplayer with Uber Jason, because from the way I read it, he wasn't going to have any vulnerabilities really, so he was going to be incredibly hard to beat in the game, which at about 2 months after the game released, it became incredibly easy for counselors to gang up and beat most Jasons. Which is sad, but at the same time, it totally makes sense. yeah, it would have got really annoying when you couldn't stun him, you couldn't hit him, you couldn't hide from him. He was going to be like the way that the film shows him at the end. Like, he's unkillable unless you drop him like a meteorite. That's it. That's the only option you got.
I always wanted to play the game. I never got a chance to. It's just I don't really. I miss video games a lot. I just don't have the time for them. It's weird. Like, the older I get, the more like energy you put into a video game. You're just sitting there moving your hands, but by the time I'm done, I'm tired. Like, I don't know. Getting old sucks.
Man, it's sad. I built this PC like 3 years ago, and I played it like crazy at the beginning, and I don't think I've turned it on in 2 months.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah, I'm going to get these kids a little bit older and then get into that VR game. That's what I'm going to be doing.
I don't really want to do VR. I want to sit back and play some racing games. That's my thing. I like racing games.
Oh.
And some horror games and a little bit of adventure game here and there, but I'm too old to play spray and play with Call of Duty. I'm not fast enough. I'm not. I enjoy watching videos of people who suck at the game, though, because they're great, but not for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you, but well, I think that's pretty much it for Jason X. I mean, happy 20th birthday. 22 years
20
old.
20 years.
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
Man,
crazy.
I love this movie.
It's crazy to think that there'd only be 2 more movies after this movie. It's I mean, in 20 years from this movie, we've got 2. That's just crazy. I mean, in the past, I mean, really, we would have had 2 Halloween movies in 2 years, like, had the pandemic not hit. Like, crazy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully there's hope in the future. I mean, I'm kind of glad they're not having Blumhouse. The Blumhouse has been turned down. They've wanted to buy it, but and they were a big champion and part of the problem, from what I understand, of the lawsuits. But then I don't know if stipulations and negotiations didn't go well, but it didn't sound like they're going to get it. So I don't know. I'd like to see them reinvent the wheel, maybe, like go to A24, go to a lesser. I don't know. You know what I mean? I just, like we've talked about before. I want a sequel to 09. I don't really want another reboot, or I want a Pamela story. And I know that nobody. I think A24 could get away with doing a Pamela story because people trust it, and they would put just enough money into it. I think that A24 could do a Pamela story and do it very well.
Yeah.
And you could leave it open-ended to where you could go do your own thing, or if it bombs, you could just leave it and it would tie into the first movie. Or you could do it updated to today, and then I think it'd probably be smarter to go back, but I don't know. But we'll see. If you guys are watching this in the future, we would appreciate you watching. If you could do the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can get some more R&R. We'll be back. More videos to follow. Thank you. Bye.
Peace.